The billionaire CEO hired his assistant to pretend to be his bride, but no one expected what he did at the altar. Before we start the story, leave in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. 11:47 at night. Ellie Morgan had been in Damien Ashford's office for 14 hours straight, surrounded by wedding invitations that needed confirmation by tomorrow. She stared at the pile with the look of someone negotiating with an enemy. "Listen here, invitations," she murmured, massaging her temples. "There are 400 of you and one of me. But I have coffee and desperation, so we're going to settle this peacefully or go to war." The invitations didn't respond. Typical. That's when the door opened and Damien walked in, looking like someone who had just lost a major $1 million deal. She had known this man for 2 years. She had never seen him like this. "Caroline ran away." Ellie blinked. "What do you mean, ran away?" "With the tennis instructor." Damien threw his phone on the desk hard enough to send 3 invitations flying to the floor. To Ibiza. Rodrigo? Ellie remembered him. Too tan, shorts too short, thighs that looked like they had been sculpted by some Greek god with too much free time and unlimited gym access. The Brazilian with the thighs? The Brazilian with the thighs. Silence. Ellie looked at the invitations scattered across the desk, at the wedding schedule stuck to the wall, at the list of vendors she had spent all day confirming, at the 3-tier cake that was being delivered in 5 days. So now what? Cancel everything? Damien didn't answer. He was looking at her in a strange way. Really looking. As if he were measuring something, calculating. "You're about the same height as her." "What?" "Same build. Different hair, but that can be fixed." He tilted his head, his eyes scanning her face like a machine. "If you put on a blonde wig, blue contacts, a beauty mark on your cheek..." Ellie laughed. A loud, nervous laugh with a touch of hysteria. "You're suggesting I dress up as your bride? Like some kind of corporate disguise movie? You want me to do a corporate impersonation?" Damien didn't laugh back. $500,000. The air left her lungs like someone had punched her in the stomach. You're serious?" "The wedding is in 1 week. Without it, the merger between Ashford and Whitmore falls apart. We're talking about $3 billion. My father is too fragile for another shock. His heart can't take it. My mother will destroy everything in her path, including me and probably you too." He stepped closer. "I need someone to marry me. Stay married for 6 months until the merger is finalized. Then, a quiet divorce. You walk away with $500,000 and a story you can never tell anyone." Ellie thought about her mother, about the treatment, about the bills that arrived every week with numbers that seemed invented by someone who hated her personally. "Your mother knows Caroline." "My mother thinks Caroline is too boring to really pay attention to. 2 years of engagement, and she still calls her the Whitmore girl. My father has compromised vision. He sees shapes, not details. The Whitmore family only arrives for the wedding. This is crazy. This is the dictionary definition of crazy, with a picture and everything. This is a contract. You're good at contracts." Damien crossed his arms. "And you need money. I know how much you make. I know you send half to your mother every month. I know she's sick." Ellie felt her face heat up. "You investigated my life?" "I investigate everyone who works for me. It's not personal." Pause. "But the offer is..." She stood up, walked to the window. Boston glittered below. A million lights from people with normal lives that didn't involve pretending to be the runaway bride of their own billionaire boss. "And Caroline? She won't mind that someone else is being her?" Damien picked up his phone. Dialed, put it on speaker. 3 rings. 4. "Philo?" Caroline's voice was drawn out, mixed with electronic music and laughter in the background. "Damien? What time is it there?" "Caroline, I need..." "Listen, I know I ran off and everything, but you understand, right? We were never in love. It was more of a business thing, and Rodrigo is literally the most amazing person I've ever met. He does this thing with his hands that..." "Caroline." "What?" "I'm going to put someone else in your place. At the wedding, at the altar, pretending to be you." Silence. For a second, Ellie thought she was going to protest, scream, threaten to suit everyone up to the 5th generation. Wearing my dress? Yes. And my veil? Yes. Sound of a drink being stirred, ice clinking. Is she going to use my makeup too? Because I left my kit in the closet of the apartment and there's a Chanel lipstick there that... "Caroline, do you care or not?" Long pause. More music. Someone yelling in Spanish in the background. You know what? No. Do whatever you want, honey. I'm busy living my life. Finally living, without those boring dinners and your mother looking at me like I'm a piece of furniture out of place. A distant laugh. Rodrigo, bring more sangria and that shrimp thing. The call dropped. Ellie stared at the phone, stared at Damien. She literally doesn't care. The woman who was going to marry you in 1 week literally doesn't care that someone else is getting married instead of her. She literally never cared about anything except herself. Damien put the phone away. So, 500,000, 6 months, then you disappear. Ellie closed her eyes, thought about her mother again, about her tired smile, about the last time she had said, "Don't worry, sweetheart, we'll figure it out," while hiding another bill on top of the refrigerator. I need to see the disguise first. The executive bathroom in the office had a full-length mirror, hospital lighting, and zero mercy. Ellie looked at the items Damien had placed on the marble counter. Synthetic blonde wig, box of blue contact lenses, set of 1-inch fake nails, and a makeup pencil for the beauty mark. Is all this necessary? It looks like a spy kit bought at a costume shop. Caroline is a natural blonde, blue eyes, nails that could be classified as sharp claws. He handed her the wig. Start from the top. Ellie took the wig, stared at it. Okay, wig lady, we don't know each other yet, but we're going to spend a lot of time together. So I'll be honest, you look like a cat that died and was resurrected wrong. But we're going to make this work. It'll be beautiful. It'll be professional. It'll be... Are you talking to the wig? I talk to everything. It helps me process. Ellie put the wig on her head. How does it go on like this, or like this, because it looks like I put on a... The wig slid to the side. She adjusted it. Slid to the other side. Adjusted again. The wig decided that the middle of her forehead was a reasonable place, and stopped there, making Ellie look like a member of some 80s rock band who had made questionable choices. This itches. This itches a lot. It feels like there are ants living in my scalp. You'll get used to it. I seriously doubt that. Now the contacts. The contacts were tiny, blue, and seemed specifically made to torture people who had never put anything in their eyes except tears of frustration. Ellie opened the little box. Looked. The lens looked back. Okay, this is going directly into my eyeball, which is an organ, a sensitive one. She tried to put it in, blinked, the lens flew into the sink. No, where is it? Where's the lens? Damien sighed, fished out the lens, washed it, and handed it back. Second attempt. Ellie managed to put one lens in, but the burning was immediate and violent. It's burning. My eye is on fire. I'm going to go blind. You're going to have to marry a blind bride and... Stop blinking. Breathe. She stopped, breathed. The burning decreased to a mild discomfort of having a strange thing touching the most sensitive part of the human body. Okay. One blue eye, one brown. I look like a horror movie character. Put in the other one. Third attempt. Second lens. More burning, more drama. But eventually 2 blue eyes blinking in the mirror. Now the nails. The nails were a disaster waiting to happen. Ellie opened the kit. 10 fake nails 1 inch long, curved, pointed, looking like claws of some tropical predator that hunted executives in their natural habitat. She glued the first one to her thumb, glued the second to her index finger, tried to glue the third and knocked over the bottle of glue. No, wait, tried to grab the bottle. The nails that were already glued on prevented any pinching motion. It was like trying to do origami using baseball bats. The bottle rolled to the edge of the counter. Ellie dove to catch it. The nails got in the way. The bottle fell on the floor. I'll get it. She bent down. The wig slid forward, covering her eyes. She lifted the wig with one hand. The nails scratched her forehead. Found the bottle. Tried to grab it. The nails slipped on the smooth surface. Why are these nails? So how did Caroline do anything with these nails? How did she eat? How did she drive? How did she go to the bathroom? She had practice. She had a support team. That's what she had. Ellie finally managed to grab the bottle using both hands like a scoop. Okay, finishing the nails. No more disasters. 7 minutes and 4 dropped nails later, all 10 claws were installed. And the beauty mark. Ellie grabbed the makeup pencil, looked at the photo of Caroline on Damien's phone. Right cheek? Right. She drew a little dot, looked in the mirror. Bigger or smaller? A little bigger. Adjusted. Looked again, and then she saw the complete creature staring back at her from the other side of the glass. Crooked blonde wig, watery blue eyes, inch-long nails that looked ready to attack someone, beauty mark on the right cheek that had ended up lower than it should be. Ellie started to laugh. Not a laugh of joy, a laugh of pure hysterical despair, the kind that happens when the universe decides to make a joke and you're the target. I look like a Barbie that melted and was reassembled wrong by a 5-year-old. Damien tilted his head, analyzing coldly. Needs adjustments. Adjustments? Ellie pointed at her own reflection with a nail that almost pierced the mirror. I look like a witness protection reject. I look like a drag queen on her day off. I look like the result of a scientific experiment that went very, very wrong. You look like Caroline. She stopped, looked again, more carefully this time, and realized beneath the walking chaos that he was right. The structure of her face was similar. The height, the shape of her eyes, now that the contacts had stopped burning so much. If you squinted and didn't pay too much attention and maybe were a little dizzy. Oh my goodness, this might work. It will work. Damien extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Ellie looked at his hand. At the mirror, at the wig that itched like it had an entire ecosystem living inside it. $500,000. Her mother could get the treatment. Everything would be okay. We have a deal. They shook hands. Ellie's nails scratched his wrist. Sorry, these claws have a mind of their own. You have 1 week to tame them. Great. 1 week, no pressure. 2 in the morning. Ellie in the back seat of an Uber heading back to Queens, still feeling the ghost of the wig itching on her head. She called her mother. Sweetie, did something happen? It's 2 in the morning. I know, Mom. Sorry to wake you, but I needed to tell you. Ellie took a deep breath, watching the city lights pass by the window. I got a promotion. A big one. Really big. It's going to change everything. Silence on the other end. And then, her mother's voice, small and trembling. Really, sweetie? Really, Mom. Everything's going to be okay now, I promise. The quiet crying on the phone almost broke Ellie in half. But it also cemented something inside her, an iron certainty that filled her chest and pushed the fear into the corner. She was going to do this. Itchy wig, burning contacts, impossible nails, beauty mark she would probably put on the wrong side every time. All of it. Buh. 3 in the morning. Text from Damien. Tomorrow you meet my mother. As Caroline, Ellie stared at her phone. The sleepiness she was feeling evaporated completely. She typed, Does your mother know if Caroline is left-handed or right-handed? Response took 30 seconds. I don't know. What's her favorite color? Pink? Her football team? Caroline didn't like sports. Her favorite food? She didn't eat carbs. You don't know anything about your own fiancé? Long pause. The 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She was a business arrangement, not a relationship. Ellie kept staring at the screen. At that sentence so simple and so sad at the same time. 2 years of engagement and he didn't know her favorite color. 2 years and she was just a contract clause. She typed, That's really sad. Response, I know. And then, 5 seconds later, welcome to the world of the Ashfords. Ellie placed the phone on her chest, looked at the ceiling of her tiny room, at the cracks she had memorized from staring at them during so many sleepless nights. Tomorrow she was going to put on a wig, pretend to be someone else, and have dinner with the family of the billionaire who was paying her to lie to everyone. What could go wrong? Everything, whispered a little voice in her head. Absolutely everything. But $500,000. Her mother was going to be okay. Ellie closed her eyes and tried to sleep, the phantom wig still itching in her memory. 6 in the evening. Ashford Mansion. And Ellie Morgan was having a very serious conversation with her own reflection in the guest bathroom mirror. Listen here. She pointed at the blonde-wigged image staring back at her. You are Caroline Whitmore. You are rich. You are elegant. You think sushi is too exotic. You say literally every 3 sentences. And you cannot scratch your head even if it feels like there's a colony of ants living under this wig. The reflection didn't respond. Typical. The wig itched. Oh goodness, how it itched. It was a deep existential itch, the kind of itch that made Ellie question every choice that had brought her to this moment. $500,000, she murmured, adjusting the gel nails that made any precise movement impossible. 500,000, Mom's treatment. It's worth it. It will be worth it. Knock on the door. Caroline, Damien's voice. My mother is waiting. Ellie took a deep breath, checked the beauty mark, left cheek. She was sure yesterday it was the right, but maybe, no, left was fine, probably. Coming. Literally coming. The Ashfords' dining room was the size of Ellie's entire apartment in Queens. Crystals hanging from the ceiling, a tablecloth that probably cost more than her car, and an absurd amount of silverware. At least 5 different forks on the left side of the plate. 5 forks. What for? Did people have 5 mouths? Victoria Ashford was seated at the head of the table like a queen observing her subjects. Impeccable silver hair, a pearl necklace that looked heavy enough to sink a ship, and eyes that analyzed every movement of Ellie's like a hawk deciding if the prey was worth the effort. "Caroline, dear." Victoria didn't get up. "You look different." Ellie felt her stomach sink. First test, first sentence. Something was already wrong. "Different how, Victoria?" She made her voice thin like Caroline's, praying it sounded natural. "I don't know. More present? You used to spend entire dinners on your phone. I decided to be more in the moment, literally in the present moment." Victoria narrowed her eyes for a second, but didn't comment. On the other side of the table, Charles Ashford smiled, a gentle, somewhat lost smile, of someone who saw the world through a fog. His vision really was compromised. Ellie felt a pang of guilt. "Dear, you look radiant today," Charles said, extending his hand. Ellie approached and held it. The gel nails made the gesture awkward, like trying to pet someone using spatulas. And then there was Gemma. 24 years old, pink tips in her hair, looking at Ellie with the intensity of a detective. She didn't say anything, just observed. Dinner began. Ellie picked up the first fork, the outer one. Gemma coughed. Ellie looked. Gemma made a tiny gesture pointing to the second fork. Wrong fork, of course. She switched forks trying to look natural. The gel nails hit the plate with a clink that made Victoria look. "Sorry, literally clumsy today." The first course was a salad with leaves Ellie couldn't identify and a dressing that seemed expensive. She tried to cut a leaf. The nails got in the way. The leaf escaped. The leaf escaped from the plate and landed on her lap. Ellie looked down. The leaf looked back. It seemed to be judging. She tried to grab it discreetly. The nails slipped. The leaf fell on the floor. "Any problems, Caroline?" "Victoria?" "None, mother-in-law." "Literally none." Silence. The kind of silence that makes you realize you said something very, very wrong. Victoria froze with the fork in the air. "Mother-in-law?" Ellie felt her blood run cold. Caroline never called Victoria mother-in-law. Caroline called her Victoria. Always Victoria. Damien had explained this yesterday. How had she forgotten in less than 24 hours? Under the table, Damien stepped on her foot. "Hard. I mean, Victoria, it was a slip. Literally a vocabulary slip. You've never called me mother-in-law before. I'm practicing, for the wedding, to seem more familiar, literally familiar." Victoria looked at her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, then went back to eating. Ellie released the air she didn't know she was holding. The second course arrived, fish, with tiny bones that required surgical precision to remove. Ellie looked at the fish. The fish seemed to look back, judging her gel nails. She tried to use the knife. The nails hit the handle. The knife slipped. Tried again. Managed to hold it, but the angle was wrong. Instead of cutting the fish, she kind of mashed it. "Is the fish to your liking, Caroline?" Victoria, watching. "Delicious. Literally delicious." Gemma was clearly trying not to laugh. The third course, meat with some dark sauce, was a little better. Ellie was getting the hang of eating with claws instead of fingers. It was like relearning to be human using alien equipment. "So, Caroline." Victoria, suddenly, with a tone too casual. "How is your mother?" Caroline's mother. That Ellie had studied yesterday for 3 hours. Eleanor Whitmore, 61 years old, philanthropy, horses. "Well, very well. Busy with the horses." "The horses." Victoria tilted her head. "I thought she had sold them all after that fall." "Fall? What fall?" Ellie hadn't read about any fall. She bought new ones, literally bought new horses after the recovery. "How nice. Send her my regards." "I will." Ellie picked up the wine glass. The nails hit the crystal with a dangerous clink. She drank too fast. Choked a little. "Dear, slow down," Charles said gently. "The wine isn't going anywhere." Ellie smiled. A smile she hoped looked elegant and not desperate. Dessert arrived, something with chocolate and raspberry that would have been delicious if Ellie could taste anything besides panic. And then Victoria asked the question. "Caroline, wasn't your beauty mark on the other side?" The world stopped. Ellie brought her hand to her cheek. Left. The beauty mark was on the left, and she was sure yesterday it was on the right, but she had studied photos of Caroline and, "I have 2, she heard her own voice say. Literally 2 beauty marks, one on each side. but the one on the right disappeared. Sun. Too much sun. Beauty marks don't disappear from the sun. Mine do. It's genetic, a Whitmore thing. Literally genetic. Victoria looked at her for 5 seconds. 7. 10. Interesting, she said finally, and went back to eating dessert. Damien, on the other side of the table, looked like he was having a silent heart attack. Dinner ended at 10. Ellie had survived. Barely, but survived. She was in the hallway heading toward the bathroom. She needed to take out the contacts that had been burning her eyes for 3 hours when a hand grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. Guest bathroom. Locked door. Gemma Ashford in front of her with crossed arms and the expression of someone who had just solved a crime. Okay. Gemma blocked the exit. Who are you and what did you do with Caroline? Ellie felt her heart stop. I'm Caroline. No, you're not. Gemma took a step forward. Caroline doesn't know how to use a fish fork. You tried to use the right one. You only messed up because those ridiculous nails got in the way. Caroline doesn't call my mother mother-in-law. Caroline doesn't look at my brother that way. What way? Like you care. Caroline never cared about anything besides the engagement credit card. Ellie opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And the beauty mark. Gemma pointed. You don't even know which side it's on. I noticed you checking in the bathroom mirror before dinner. 3 times. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when you're cornered and have nowhere to run. Ellie could deny it. She could make up more excuses. She could do Caroline's thin voice and say, literally, 15 more times. But looking at Gemma, with her sharp eyes and expression that wasn't going to accept nonsense, she knew it wasn't going to work. Your brother is going to destroy me for telling you this. My brother isn't going to know yet. Gemma crossed her arms. Talk. And Ellie told her. Everything. Caroline running off to Ibiza with the Brazilian with the thighs. The insane plan. The disguise. The wig that itched like it had a life of its own. The contacts that burned. The $500,000. Her mother. When she finished, she waited for the screaming, the scandal, the threat to tell everyone. Instead, Gemma started to laugh. Not a polite laugh. A real belly laugh. The kind that makes a person double over and have to lean on the sink to keep from falling. My brother. She could barely speak. My brother hired someone to pretend to be his bride because the real bride ran off with a Brazilian. Yes, this is the most incredible thing that's ever happened in this family. Gemma wiped a tear. This is a soap opera. I love it. I literally love it. You're not gonna tell? Tell? Gemma looked offended. And missed the chance to see this unfold in real time? No way. She extended her hand. Gemma Ashford, your new best friend and official accomplice. Ellie shook her hand, still in shock. But you're going to need help, Gemma continued. My mother is smart. She already suspected today. I saw her face when you got the beauty mark wrong. We need to train you. Train me? Train you to be the real Caroline, not this improvised version. Gemma took her phone out of her pocket. Tomorrow morning. My room. I'll show you videos, photos, the way she walked, the phrases she used. You're going to be such a perfect Caroline that even the real Caroline wouldn't know the difference. Why are you doing this? Gemma stopped. For a second, something real passed through her eyes, something beyond the amusement. Because for the first time in years, my brother seems to be feeling something. She put her phone away. And because I hate the real Caroline, always have. She treated everyone like we were her servants. Pause. You, at least, tried to use the right fork. The bathroom door opened. Damien was on the other side, expression tense. Ellie? The wig is? He saw Gemma, stopped. What's going on? Gemma smiled, the smile of someone who knew secrets. Etiquette lessons, little brother. Your bride needs some tips. Damien looked from one to the other, clearly wanting to ask more. Gemma walked past him and left, whistling. She knows, Ellie said quietly. I figured. Damien sighed. What did she say? That this is a soap opera, and that she loves it, an almost smile crossed his face. That's very Gemma. She's going to help me, train me to be a better Caroline. Good. You're going to need it. He hesitated. Tomorrow, Caroline's parents called. They arrive in 2 days to help with the preparations. Ellie's stomach dropped. Her parents? The parents who have known her since she was born. The parents who are going to realize immediately that I'm not their daughter? Damien didn't answer, which was answer enough. Well, Ellie leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of the disguise, the itchy wig, the burning contacts, the nails that wouldn't let her function as a human being. No pressure. You did well today, really. I called your mother-in-law and made up a story about genetic beauty marks that disappear from the sun. But you survived. Damien stepped closer. And you made my father smile. He hasn't smiled like that in months. Ellie looked at him. Without the wig, she had taken it off in the bathroom. She needed air. Without the burning contacts, just Ellie. Tired, nervous, but still there. Your family is intense, she said. I know. Your mother is terrifying, I know. And I'm probably going to put the beauty mark in the wrong place again tomorrow. Damien laughed. A low laugh, almost surprised at itself. You probably will. They stayed there for a moment. In the silent hallway of the mansion, two accomplices in a completely crazy plan. Good night, Caroline, Damien said, ironic. Good night, fake groom. He turned to leave. Stopped. Ellie? Yes? The beauty mark was on the right. In the most recent photo I found, at least. Ellie closed her eyes. Of course it was. When she went back to the guest room, because now she lived in the Ashford mansion, apparently. The wig was on the dresser like a sleeping animal. Ellie sat on the edge of the bed, looked at the wig. You and me, she said quietly, we're going to go through a lot together. The wig didn't respond, but Ellie could have sworn it itched a little, just out of spite. 2 hours later, a text from Gemma. Tomorrow 8 a.m. Bring coffee, and prepare to become the most convincing Caroline in the world. Ellie looked at the ceiling, at the shadows dancing on the very expensive chandelier in the room. Caroline's parents were arriving in 2 days. Victoria already suspected. And she still didn't know how to use the 5 different forks. What could go wrong? The wig seemed to itch again, just out of spite. Absolutely everything, Ellie thought. Absolutely everything. 8 in the morning. Gemma Ashford's room. And Ellie was watching what could only be described as a masterclass in being someone else. First, the walk. Gemma got up from the bed and crossed the room with a posture that made it seem like the floor was made of diamonds that didn't deserve to be touched by her. Caroline walks like this, like the world exists just to be a carpet for her feet. Ellie tried to imitate it. She looked more like a person with back pain trying to balance books on her head. No, no, no. Gemma shook her head. You're walking like a normal person. Caroline is not a normal person. Caroline is a creature who genuinely believes she was born to be served. That's horrible. That's real. Now try again. Ellie tried, 6 times. On the 7th, Gemma applauded. Better, it still looks like you have a spine problem, but at least it's the right spine problem. Gemma's room was the opposite of the rest of the mansion. Band posters, travel photos, a pile of books that had clearly collapsed and nobody bothered to fix. It was messy and alive and absolutely the only room in the house where Ellie could breathe. Now, the phrases. Gemma grabbed a notebook. Caroline says literally every 3 sentences, sometimes 4, sometimes 2 if she's irritated. I already noticed that. But it's not just saying literally, it's the way. Gemma demonstrated stretching the word like gum. That's literally amazing. Ellie tried. That's literally amazing. More drawn out. More like you're bored of being alive. That's literally amazing? That, exactly like that. Now practice 15 more times. Half an hour later, Ellie could say literally as if the word had 15 syllables and all of them were boring. Next, the pout. Gemma demonstrated. Lips projected forward in a way that expressed maximum disapproval with minimum effort. This is for when she doesn't like something, which is almost everything. Ellie imitated it. She looked like she had sucked on a lemon. Less lemon, more I'm too good for this. Adjust. Adjust again. On the 5th try, Gemma nodded. Perfect. You officially know how to make a rich girl face of disgust. Ellie threw herself on the bed, exhausted and nearly knocked out a stuffed bear. This is intense. This is survival. Gemma sat down next to her. My mother already suspected. I saw her face yesterday when you got the beauty mark wrong. And when you called her mother-in-law, oh my goodness, I thought she was going to have an attack. Your mother is terrifying. She's efficient. Those are different things. Gemma passed her the notebook. Here, list of things Caroline likes, hates, does, doesn't do. I studied her for 2 years being forced to participate in family events. Now you're going to benefit from my suffering. Ellie looked at the list. It was extensive. Likes, champagne, French only, horses, but not really, just the idea. Photos of herself, compliments about her appearance. Hates, sushi, too exotic, any food with a foreign name she can't pronounce, people prettier than her, rain. Does. Plays with her hair when she lies, touches her necklace when she wants to change the subject, sighs dramatically when she's bored. Doesn't do. Shows genuine interest in other people, laughs for real, only polite laughter, admits mistakes. This is depressing, Ellie said. This is Caroline. Gemma shrugged. Now you understand why I hate her. Why did your brother get engaged to her? The question came out before Ellie could stop it. Gemma was silent for a moment, the kind of silence that carries weight. Because my father wanted him to. Because the merger needed it. Because Damien spent his whole life doing what was expected of him. She looked out the window. He was never allowed to want anything for himself. Everything was always about the family, the business, the legacy. That's sad. That's being in Ashford. Gemma turned, and the light tone returned. That's why I became the black sheep. Dyeing my hair pink was my little rebellion. Ellie looked at the pink tips of Gemma's hair. Your mother must have loved that. She cried for 3 days and then pretended it was a European trend. Gemma smiled. We adapt. The door opened without warning. Damien appeared and stopped when he saw the two of them sitting on the bed surrounded by notebooks and photos of Caroline. What's going on here? Caroline etiquette lessons, Gemma said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Your fake bride needs an upgrade. Gemma smiled. And it's the most fun thing that's happened in this family since Uncle Robert fell into the fountain at Cousin Agatha's wedding. Okay, fine. He leaned against the doorframe. This is good, actually. You can help. I'm already helping. Ellie now knows how to make a rich girl face of disgust. Ellie demonstrated the pout. Damien looked vaguely confused. That's disturbingly accurate. I know. Gemma stood up. Now, Caroline's parents arrive tomorrow. We need a plan. The plan involved 3 more hours of intensive training. Ellie learned that Caroline's mother, Eleanor, played piano and expected her daughter to comment on it. She learned that the father, Robert Sr., had a dog named Winston who was the love of his life. She learned that Caroline had a scar on her left knee from a bicycle fall at age 7 that she hated having mentioned. They're going to hug you, Gemma warned. Caroline's mother is the hugging type, so you're going to have to fake intimacy with strangers who think they've known you since you were a baby. This is terrible. This is Tuesday in our family. Damien appeared occasionally, bringing coffee and additional information. Every time he came in, Ellie noticed, he looked at her in a way she couldn't decipher. Like he was calculating something. Do you need anything else? He asked during one of these appearances. Childhood memories of your ex-fiancé? Because apparently, I'm going to have to pretend I remember the summer in Martha's Vineyard. Caroline was 15. She fell off the pier trying to take a photo. Gemma told me. The water was warm. Gemma told me that too. Damien hesitated. He seemed to want to say something more. What is it? Ellie asked. Nothing. Just... He looked at Gemma, who was pretending to read the notebook but clearly listening to every word. You two laughing together. Gemma hasn't laughed like that in a long time. Since when? Since the family became a battle, since things got complicated. He almost said something different, Ellie noticed. You make it seem easy. Laughing? Making people laugh. Ellie didn't know what to respond. Damien had already left. He likes you, Gemma said, quietly. He barely knows me. Exactly. Gemma went back to the notebook. 2 years of engagement to Caroline, and he never looked at her like that. 2 weeks with you, and... It's been 3 days, technically. And look at the progress. Gemma smiled, but there was something serious underneath. Just be careful, okay? My brother is complicated, and my mother will destroy anything that threatens her plans. I know. You don't know, not yet. By late afternoon, Ellie could walk, talk, and make faces like Caroline Whitmore. Not perfectly, but enough to fool people who weren't looking for flaws. One last thing. Gemma stood up, serious. The phone. What about the phone? Caroline is always on her phone, but when she's near someone important, she puts it away. It's like a sign that the person deserves attention. Gemma made the gesture, phone in pocket with studied elegance. Practice. Ellie practiced until it looked natural. Great, you're ready to fool a stranger's parents. When you say it like that, it sounds even worse than it is. When I say it like that, it sounds exactly like what it is. 6 in the evening. Ellie was in the winter garden, trying to memorize more details about Caroline's childhood, when Charles Ashford appeared. He walked slowly, with the cane he used more for balance than necessity. His eyes, behind thick glasses, were gentle in a way that didn't match the rest of the family. "Caroline, dear, may I sit down?" "Of course." Ellie closed the notebook quickly. Charles sat in the armchair next to her. For a moment, he just sat there, looking at the garden through the glass walls. "You're different," he said finally. Ellie's heart raced. "Different how?" "More present, more kind." He turned to her, and even with compromised vision, he seemed to see through her. "What happened?" Ellie swallowed hard. The honest answer, that she was a completely different person, couldn't be said. So she did what she could. "I realized what matters," she said, and surprised herself because it was true. "Not for Caroline. For her." Charles nodded slowly. "My son also seems different, since you arrived." "Different?" "Less rigid, more himself." Charles held her hand. The gel nails made the gesture awkward, but he didn't seem to notice. "Take care of him, dear. He forgot how to be happy. Maybe you can remind him." Ellie's eyes burned. "The contacts, yes, but also something more. I'll try," she whispered, and for the first time since this crazy plan began, she wondered if she was doing more than pretending. 9 at night, text from Damien. "The Whitmores confirmed. They arrive tomorrow at 2 p.m. Be ready." Ellie looked at the message, at the blonde wig on the dresser, at the Caroline dress hanging in the closet. Tomorrow she was going to meet the parents of a woman who was in Ibiza with a Brazilian. She was going to hug strangers who thought she was their daughter. She was going to pretend to remember memories she never had. "Okay, wig." She sat on the edge of the bed. "Tomorrow is your big day. Try not to fall off, okay? For goodness sake, try not to fall off." The wig didn't respond, but Ellie could have sworn it itched a little, just to remind her who was in charge. In bed, before sleep, another text. "Gemma. You can do this, and if you can't, I have embarrassing stories about Caroline to distract everyone." Ellie smiled, closed her eyes. Caroline's parents were arriving in less than 20 hours. Victoria still suspected. Charles thought she could save his son, and Damien looked at her in a way that made her heart do inconvenient things. What could go wrong? The answer was long, very long, and Ellie was going to find that out very soon. The Eastbrook Country Club was the kind of place where even the air seemed to cost money. Ellie was on the golf course, holding a club she had no idea how to use, surrounded by ladies in designer visors who looked at her with expressions of refined judgment. "So, Caroline," one of the ladies, Margaret, wife of some senator, tilted her head. "Have you been playing for a long time?" "Literally years," Ellie lied, praying for the wig to stop itching. Gemma, on the other side of the course, made a discreet gesture indicating that she should hold the club differently. Ellie adjusted. The gel nails hit the handle with a clink. "Interesting way of holding it," Margaret commented. "European technique. Literally revolutionary." The morning had started at 9, when Victoria announced that Caroline was going to accompany her to the weekly club lunch. Ellie almost choked on her coffee. Golf? She could barely play mini-golf without causing an international incident. But now she was here. In a skirt that restricted movement, heels that sank into the grass, and nails that made it impossible to hold anything smaller than a watermelon. "Your turn, dear." Victoria, impeccable in white, gestured to the tee. Ellie positioned herself. The wind blew, the wig trembled. Not now, she thought. Please, not now. She raised the club, aimed at the ball, took a deep breath. Crack! The ball flew. Not forward, but sideways, in an arc that could only be described as physically improbable. It whizzed past the head of a lady in a pink hat, missing by inches, and landed in a sand bunker 50 yards away. "Sorry," Ellie shouted, completely forgetting Caroline's thin voice. Literally sorry. The lady in the pink hat, who was apparently the wife of an ambassador from somewhere, looked like she was going to faint. "The wind," Ellie explained, going back to the thin voice. "Literally, the wind caught me by surprise." Victoria had an expression that suggested she was mentally writing something. The second shot wasn't better. The ball ended up in the water. The third went into a flower bed. The fourth, by some miracle of physics, went in the right direction, but hit a tree and came back, almost hitting Ellie in the head. "Tough day," she said, smiling stiffly. "Literally tough." Gemma appeared out of nowhere with a bottle of water. "You're doing well," she whispered. "I almost caused 2 incidents. That's why you're doing well. Normally it would be 3. At lunch, on a veranda overlooking the course with waiters who appeared and disappeared like ghosts, things improved slightly. The ladies seemed to have forgotten the near decapitation and now focused on gossip about people Ellie didn't know. Caroline, dear. Margaret leaned in. You're different. More approachable. Ellie almost choked on her salad. Different how? Before you always seemed so distant. Like we were beneath you. Margaret smiled. But today you seem almost human. Gemma on the other side of the table faked a cough to hide her laugh. I'm working on that, Ellie said. Literally evolving as a person. Victoria observed everything with eagle eyes. She didn't say anything, but Ellie could feel the weight of scrutiny like a hand on the back of her neck. 2 in the afternoon, the second round of golf. Ellie was on the fairway trying to decide which club to use. They all looked the same to her when the wind started. It wasn't a normal wind. It was the kind of wind that seemed to have its own opinion, and that opinion was destroy Ellie Morgan's life. The wig trembled. Ellie brought her hand to her head casually, as if adjusting her hair. The wig slid to the side. No. No. She tried to adjust discreetly. The wig decided that discreetly was a suggestion, not an order, and slid more. Damien, who had appeared an hour ago to accompany his bride, noticed before anyone else. In 3 long strides, he was by her side, an arm around her shoulders in a hug that looked romantic but was essentially a wig containment system. Smile, he murmured in her ear. And don't move. The wig is coming off. I know. I'm holding it. Do you have a better idea? Ellie smiled. A fixed, desperate smile of someone being hugged by their groom while the fake hair threatened to reveal the real hair. You two are so cute together. Margaret watching. You seem really in love. Thank you, Damien said, his arm tightening slightly. She's everything to me. Ellie felt something strange in her chest. Something that had nothing to do with the wig almost falling off. The hug lasted longer than necessary. When they finally separated, the wig miraculously back in place, Damien looked at her in a way she couldn't decipher. Better? He asked quietly. Better. Good. 3 in the afternoon, the final shot of the day. Ellie was determined to do one thing right. One single shot that didn't involve near accidents or public disasters. She positioned herself, took a deep breath, raised the club, and then, at the exact moment she made the swing, one of the gel nails came off. The nail flew in a perfect arc, spinning in the air like a hot pink ninja star, directly towards Senator Williams. Time seemed to slow down. The nail spun. The senator was chatting with an aide, completely unaware of the projectile approaching his face. Gemma dove. It was cinematic. A lateral dive, arms extended, that would have been worthy of an action movie if it weren't so completely absurd. She caught the nail in the air, 2 inches from the senator's ear. Found your earring, Caroline, Gemma announced, getting up and pretending the hot pink gel nail was a lost accessory. It fell from your hair. Ellie stood frozen, club still in the air. My earring. Yes, my nail, earring, European trend. The senator looked confused but nodded politely. Victoria, 30 feet away, had an expression that suggested she knew exactly what had just happened and was not happy about it. At the club bar afterward, Ellie collapsed in a chair while Gemma brought drinks. Ellie had no words. Incredible, terrifying, the best moment of my life. Gemma sat next to her. Because for me it was all 3. I almost caused a diplomatic incident with a gel nail. But you didn't. Because of my heroic dive. Your mother saw. My mother sees everything, but she can't prove anything. Gemma raised her glass. To survival. Ellie toasted. The remaining nails, 8 now not 10, hit the glass with a clink. Damien appeared half an hour later, when most of the ladies had already left, and only Ellie, Gemma, and the staff, pretending not to hear the conversation, remained. You were incredible today, he said, sitting next to them. Ellie stared at him. I almost hit a senator with a gel nail. But you won over all the wives. They never liked Caroline. It's true, Gemma confirmed. They thought she was insufferable. But you almost killed them and they liked you. That's not a compliment. In this family, it is. The car ride back to the mansion was silent. Ellie had taken off the wig. She needed air, literally, and the contacts had already been removed in the club bathroom. Damien was driving. Through the rearview mirror, he looked at her from time to time. What is it? She asked. Nothing. You're looking at me. Pause, he stopped at a red light. You look better like this. Ellie frowned. Like this, how? Like this. He gestured vaguely at her. Without the wig, without the contacts, without the whole disguise. The air in the car changed, became denser, more complicated. I'm Caroline now, Ellie said, trying to keep her voice light. That's the deal. I know. Damien looked back at the road, but sometimes as I forget. Forgetting is dangerous. I know. The light turned green. The car started moving again. But something had changed between them. Something neither of them could name. At night. Guest room. Ellie was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at the wig as if it had answers. He said I look better like this, she told the wig. What do you think? The wig didn't respond, but it seemed slightly offended. It's not about you. You're great for what you are. Ellie ran her hand through the synthetic strands. But I don't know what I am anymore in this whole plan. Text from Gemma. Congratulations on surviving the day. Tomorrow, Caroline's parents. Prepare to hug strangers who think they've known you since you were a baby. Ellie closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the Whitmores were arriving. Victoria still suspected. And Damien looked at her in a way that made her question whether she was still pretending or had started to feel for real. What could go wrong? She already knew the answer. But that night, for the first time, part of her wondered if wrong was even the right word. The wig seemed to itch one last time, as if agreeing. Or maybe it was just the wind. Eleanor Whitmore was exactly like in the photos Ellie had studied. Elegant, impeccable, and with arms that opened for a hug before Ellie could even prepare. Caroline, my dear. Eleanor wrapped her up as if hugging a daughter she hadn't seen in years. You look radiant. Love suits you. Ellie froze in the arms of a stranger who thought she was someone else. It was like being hugged by a walking DNA test. Mom, she managed to say, Caroline's thin voice trembling slightly. Literally great to see you. Robert Whitmore Sr. was right behind. A tall man, with a mustache of someone who takes dogs to competitions and eyes that examined Ellie with more attention than she would have liked. Dear, he kissed her forehead. You seem different. Ellie's heart raced. Different how? More present. He tilted his head. As if you were really here this time. I'm working on that. Literally. The rest of the afternoon was a parade of near disasters. Eleanor wanted to know about that dress from Martha's Vineyard, and Ellie had to improvise a story about donating it to charity. Robert mentioned the dog Winston, and Ellie smiled as if she'd known the animal all her life, when in reality, she had memorized the name less than 48 hours ago. Do you remember the summer you fell off the pier? Eleanor asked during tea. How could I forget? Ellie laughed nervously. The water was so refreshing. It was warm. It was July, dear. Warm, right, compared to other lakes that are colder in other places. Eleanor exchanged a look with Robert. Gemma in the corner of the room faked a coughing fit. 7 at night. Boston Opera. Ellie had never been to the opera. The closest she had come was watching The Phantom of the Opera in a community production where the chandelier was a paper lantern that almost caught fire. Now she was in a private box, surrounded by Ashfords and Whitmores, wearing a gown and trying to look sophisticated, while the contact lenses burned, as if they had their own opinion about Italian opera. The performance was La Traviata. 3 hours of people singing about love and death in Italian. You love Verdi, dear, Eleanor whispered. Remember when you cried at the finale in Milan? How could I forget? Ellie said without the slightest idea of what happened in the finale. The first hour was bearable. The second was an exercise in endurance. By the third, Ellie's eyes started getting heavy. Don't fall asleep, she ordered herself. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Don't. She woke up with a yelp, her own yelp. Loud, in the middle of a silent aria. 800 people in the theater turned to look, and the wig was crooked. Very crooked. Like 45 degrees of crooked. Sorry, literally. Ellie brought her hand to her head and realized something worse. One contact had slipped. One eye was blue. The other was brown. Victoria, 3 seats away, looked like she was mentally writing something. Damien acted before anyone else could react. He pulled Ellie into a kiss. Not a real kiss, more like a disaster containment maneuver disguised as romance. His lips barely touched hers, but his body blocked everyone's view while his hands quickly adjusted the wig. The wig is sideways, he whispered against her mouth. The contact slipped. Close your eyes. She closed them, felt his fingers adjusting the wig, putting the contact back in place, with a precision that suggested practice. What do I look like? She murmured. Quasimodo in a wig. That's horrible, I know. Stop talking and let me fix it. When they finally separated, wig straight, contacts in place, dignity partially recovered, Eleanor had her hand on her chest. You two are so in love, Robert, did you see? They can barely stay apart. Robert nodded, clearly uncomfortable with public displays of affection, but unable to argue against such obvious evidence. Victoria said nothing, but her eyes told a different story. During intermission, Ellie escaped to the ladies' room to try to compose herself. The contacts still burned, the wig itched, and she had just almost kissed, Damien Ashford in public for the first time. It wasn't a real kiss, she told herself. It was damage control. Strategy. Nothing more. But her heart didn't seem to agree. Eleanor found her in the hallway, smiling. "Dear, I need to ask about Martha's Vineyard." Ellie froze. "What about Martha's Vineyard?" "That summer, when you fell off the pier." Eleanor tilted her head. "Do you remember which pier it was?" It was a test. Ellie knew it was a test, and she hadn't studied this. The main one, she risked. The wooden one or the concrete one? Ellie felt sweat run down the back of her neck. Wooden one, because it was more unstable? Eleanor was silent for 3 seconds. 5, 7. "You're right, dear, it was the wooden one." She laughed. "For a second I thought you had forgotten." Ellie released the air she didn't know she was holding. "I never forget, Mom. Literally memorable." On her way back to the box, Ellie passed Victoria. The matriarch stopped her with a look. "The beauty mark," Victoria said quietly. Ellie touched her cheek. Left. She had put it on the left this morning. "Wasn't it on the other side yesterday?" Ellie swallowed hard. "I have a condition. Literally a dermatological condition. Migratory beauty marks." Migratory beauty marks. "It's very rare. Almost no one has it." Victoria said nothing, but her eyes said everything. The second act of the opera passed in a blur of anxiety and Italian arias. Ellie fought to stay awake, discreetly pinching her own leg whenever her eyes threatened to close. At the finale, when everyone was dying or crying or doing both, Eleanor wiped away a tear. "It always moves me," she whispered to Ellie. "You cried in Milan too, remember?" Ellie forced a tear. It wasn't difficult. The contacts helped. Midnight. The car heading back to the Ashford mansion was silent. The Whitmores had gone to their hotel. Victoria and Charles were in the car ahead. Gemma had disappeared with the excuse of meeting friends, which probably meant escaping family stress. Just Ellie and Damien in the back seat. She took off the wig as soon as the car door closed. The feeling of freedom was immediate and almost surreal. "I'm not going to make it," she said, massaging her scalp. "This is impossible. You convinced her parents. I almost didn't convince them." "But you did." Damien looked at her. She still wasn't wearing the contacts, which burned too much to stay in another second. Brown hair, brown eyes, without heavy makeup. "You're incredible, you know that?" Something in his tone made Ellie stop. "Ellie or Caroline?" Silence, long, heavy. "Ellie," he said finally. "It's always been Ellie." The air in the car changed, became denser, more complicated. Ellie felt her heart race. This wasn't part of the plan. This was exactly what couldn't happen. "Damien," he moved closer. She moved closer. The distance between them shrank to inches. "We've arrived, Mr. Ashford." The driver's voice cut through the moment like a knife. The two of them jumped back. The air returned to normal, or tried to. "Good night," Damien said, his voice strangely hoarse. "Good night," Ellie responded, her heart still racing. She got out of the car, entered the mansion, went up to her room. Only when she closed the door did she realize she was shaking. This wasn't supposed to happen, she thought. It was a contract, an agreement. $500,000 and 6 months of pretending. But looking in the mirror, the real Ellie, not the disguised Caroline, she wondered if she was still pretending. The wig was on the dresser, as always. Ellie sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it. "He said it's always been me." She told the wig. "What do you think?" The wig didn't respond. But for the first time, it didn't seem to itch in protest. Maybe that meant something. Or maybe Ellie was losing her grip on reality. In the current situation, it was hard to tell the difference. 1 a.m. Text from Gemma. "Saw you two in the car, the kiss at the opera, the way he looked at you, we need to talk." Ellie looked at the message, at the ceiling, at the chaos her life had become. The almost kiss in the car, Victoria's look, the question about the beauty mark, Caroline's parents thinking she was their daughter. Everything was spiraling out of control, and the worst part? A part of her, a part that grew every day, didn't want to control it anymore. The ocean at Cape Cod was a blue that looked painted, and Ellie Morgan was about to throw up in it. "Are you okay?" Damien asked, holding the helm of the sailboat with an irritating naturalness. "Perfectly fine," Ellie responded, swallowing the wave of nausea. "Literally, No, wait, I don't need to talk like that anymore. She stopped, looked at herself. No wig, no contacts, no gel nails. She had taken off the remaining ones this morning. Brown hair in the wind, brown eyes. Just Ellie. Caroline's parents had returned to New York. See you at the wedding, dear. Victoria was in Boston dealing with a last-minute crisis with vendors. For the first time since the plan began, Ellie and Damien were alone. And Damien had decided it was the perfect time to go sailing. My father taught me on this boat, he said, pointing to the wooden sailboat that seemed to have survived at least 3 decades of ocean. The only thing he did with me that didn't involve business. Ellie wanted to comment, but another wave of nausea interrupted her. Blur. She ran to the side of the boat and returned breakfast to the Atlantic. Sorry. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. You've never been on a boat? I've never been on a boat that moves. Ferries are different. Ferries are blur, more ocean, more breakfast. Damien, to his credit, didn't laugh. He just guided the sailboat to a calmer area, where the waves were gentle instead of wild. Better? Ellie breathed once, twice. Her stomach calmed down. Better. Still horrible, but better. Want to go back? No. She surprised herself with her own answer. It's beautiful here, when my body cooperates. The sailboat glided across the calm water. Ellie sat on the deck, letting the wind dry the post-vomit sweat from her face. It wasn't exactly glamorous, but it was real. And for some reason, real seemed more important than glamorous. You can be yourself here, Damien said, as if reading her thoughts. No disguise. It's strange. I forgot what it's like not to scratch my head every second. He smiled, a real smile, not the CEO smile she was used to seeing. The wig is terrible, isn't it? The wig is a living creature that personally hates me. Ellie looked at the horizon. But it gave me you, so I guess we're even. The words came out before she could stop them. Damien was silent. Gave you me? He asked, careful. No. I meant, Ellie felt her face heat up. This situation, this plan, all this craziness. I wouldn't be here without the wig. Literally. Not Caroline literally. Ellie literally. Damien said nothing, but something in his eyes changed. The afternoon passed slowly, the way afternoons at sea tend to pass. They talked about things that had nothing to do with weddings or mergers or disguises. Ellie discovered that Damien was afraid of spiders. It's not fear, it's intense discomfort. That's fear with fancy words. Damien discovered that Ellie had wanted to be a veterinarian when she was a kid. Why didn't you? Because being a vet doesn't pay hospital bills. They discovered that they both hated pineapple on pizza and that they both cried at dog movies. Don't tell Gemma, Damien said. She'll never let me forget. Ocean secret, Ellie promised. It stays between us and the seagulls. When the sun began to set, they anchored in a small cove. The boat swayed gently, and for the first time since the plan started, Ellie felt at peace. Can I tell you something? Damien asked, looking at the sunset. Of course, I never loved Caroline. Ellie already knew that, but hearing it out loud was different. Why did you get engaged to her? Because my father asked. Because the merger needed it. Because, he stopped, because I spent my whole life doing what was expected of me, never what I wanted. What did you want? Silence. The boat swayed. A seagull cried in the distance. I don't know. I was never allowed to find out. Ellie felt her chest tighten, not from nausea this time, from something more complicated. Your father seems kind, she said. Charles. He is, but he's also an Ashford, and Ashfords put family above everything. Damien looked at her, including happiness. That's sad. It's real. It can be both. Damien was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, lower, more vulnerable. My father built all of this, the empire, the fortune, the position, and the only thing he wanted was to see me happy. Pause. And I don't know how to be happy. I don't even know what it would look like. Ellie didn't think. She just reached out and held his hand. Maybe it's this, she said. A boat. A conversation. Someone who doesn't want anything from you except you. Damien looked at her. Really looked. The kind of look that makes you feel seen down to your bones. You're different from anyone I've ever met. I'm a walking disaster who almost threw up on your shoe. Exactly that. They laughed, and then they stopped laughing. And then they were closer than before, not intentionally, just gravitating toward each other as if it were inevitable. The sun was almost at the horizon now, orange and pink and gold, painting the ocean in impossible colors. Damien leaned in, Ellie leaned in. The phone rang. The moment shattered like glass. Victoria. I'm heading back to Cape Cod. Her voice cut through the air. The wedding vendor needs urgent decisions. Caroline needs to be present. Damien closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, the CEO was back. Understood. We'll be there in an hour. He hung up. Ellie let go of his hand. She hadn't even realized she was still holding it. We have to go back, he said. I know. Neither of them moved. Ellie? Don't say it. He stopped. Why? Because if you say it, it will change everything. And I don't know if I'm ready for everything to change. Silence. The boat swayed gently. The sun finished setting. Damien didn't speak, but his eyes said everything that needed to be said. The way back was in silence. Not an uncomfortable silence. A silence full of unspoken things. The kind of silence that weighs more than words. Ellie looked at the wig in her bag. She had brought it just in case Victoria showed up by surprise. The synthetic blonde wig, still smelling of sea salt from the time it almost flew into the ocean. I'm going to have to put it back on, she said, more to herself than to Damien. I know. And the contacts, and the nails, and pretend that the last few years of my life happened to someone else. I know. Ellie picked up the wig, stared at it. Listen here, Miss Wig. We've had our differences. You made me itch at terrible moments. You almost flew into the sea. You almost exposed me at the opera. But, she took a deep breath. We've been through a lot together. And I kind of like you, in a twisted, complicated way. The wig didn't respond, but it didn't itch either. Maybe that was a sign of progress. Damien was watching her talk to a wig as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Do you do this often? He asked. Talk to objects? Yes, it helps me process. It's strange. You hired a stranger to pretend to be your fiancé. Neither of us is in a position to judge strangeness. He laughed, a low laugh, almost surprised at himself. You're right. I'm always right. Ask the wig. The port appeared on the horizon, reality waiting to swallow them again. Ellie put on the wig, the contacts, the mask of Caroline. When they got off the boat, she was no longer Ellie Morgan. She was Caroline Whitmore, Damien Ashford's fiancée, future wife in a billion-dollar merger. Victoria was waiting at the pier, sharp eyes, the posture of someone who came to solve problems. Caroline, the florist changed the options. We need to decide now. And just like that, the spell was broken. But that night, in the guest room, looking at the wig on the vanity, Ellie could still feel the ghost of Damien's hand in hers. The sun setting over the ocean, the conversation about happiness, the almost kiss that didn't happen. What do you think? She asked the wig. Am I in big trouble? The wig didn't respond. But for the first time, Ellie knew the answer herself. Yes, completely, absolutely in trouble. And the worst part, she didn't want to run away from the trouble anymore. Message from Gemma at 11 at night. My mom is back. She seems irritated, more than usual. Stay alert. Ellie looked at her phone, at the ceiling, at the wig that now seemed like an old friend. Victoria was investigating something. Ellie could feel it. The way she looked, the questions about the beauty mark, the way she showed up at the worst moments. The wedding was in a few days. Victoria was suspicious, and Ellie had just almost kissed the groom on his father's sailboat. What could go wrong? Everything. Absolutely everything. But when she closed her eyes, the only thing Ellie could see was the sunset over the ocean and Damien's eyes saying things his mouth couldn't speak. And for a moment, just a moment, the fear seemed worth it. Victoria Ashford was looking at Ellie from across the breakfast table as if she could see right through her. And considering the intensity of that look, Ellie didn't doubt that she could. You seem different today, Caroline. Victoria took a sip of tea with the elegance of someone who could use the cup as a weapon if necessary. More rested. The ocean air, Ellie responded, forcing Caroline's high-pitched voice. Literally invigorating. The ocean air. Victoria placed the cup on the saucer with a precise clink. Curious how the ocean air seems to have that effect every time you spend time alone with my son. The coffee in Ellie's hand trembled, just a little, but enough. Damien is my fiancé. It's natural for us to spend time together. Natural, yes. Victoria tilted her head. Your voice sounds different. Ellie froze. The high-pitched voice, had she let it slip? Gone back to normal for a second? Allergies. Literally allergies. The pollen is terrible. There's no pollen in December. Winter pollen, very rare. Almost nobody has it. The silence that followed could have cut steel. You have very convenient answers, Caroline. Victoria stood up, almost as if you're always prepared. She left the room. Air finally returned to Ellie's lungs. Message from Gemma, 30 seconds later. She knows something. I saw her yesterday looking at old photos of Caroline. Lots of photos. Ellie looked at her phone. At the coffee that now seemed ice cold. At the wig that itched as if it knew something was wrong. The plan was falling apart. Ellie could feel it. Noon. Wedding dress fitting room. Ellie was standing on a small platform, surrounded by 3 seamstresses, making final adjustments to Caroline's dress, which, ironically, fit Ellie perfectly. Did you lose weight? One of the seamstresses asked. Pre-wedding stress. Literally. Gemma was in the corner pretending to look at fabrics, but clearly monitoring the situation. She had sent 12 messages in the last 2 hours, all variations of, "Be careful," and "My mom is planning something." The door opened. Victoria entered. "Leave us alone," she ordered the seamstresses. The 3 of them disappeared like smoke. Ellie stood frozen on the platform. White wedding dress gleaming under the lights, wig itching, heart racing. Caroline? Victoria walked around her like a predator circling its prey. Or should I call you by another name? The world stopped. Ellie felt her blood run cold. I noticed your beauty mark changes sides. Every day. Sometimes twice in the same day. Victoria stopped in front of her. Caroline's beauty mark was tattooed, in the same place, always. Oh no. I noticed you don't know how to eat with the right forks. Caroline attended formal dinners since she was 12. Oh no, oh no. And I noticed you look at my son in a way Caroline never did, as if he were a person, not a blank check. Oh no. Ellie opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Victoria, don't insult me with more lies. Victoria raised her hand. I will find out who you are. It's only a matter of time. She turned and left, leaving Ellie trembling on the platform. Someone else's wedding dress hanging from her shoulders like a confession. Gemma came running in as soon as her mother disappeared. What did she say? What happened? You're as white as the dress. She knows. Ellie's voice came out small. She doesn't know everything, but she knows something is wrong. What? How? The beauty mark. I put it in the wrong place every time, and apparently Caroline's was tattooed. Gemma stopped. Tattooed? Tattooed. Gemma, her beauty mark was tattooed and you didn't tell me. I didn't know. I could have sworn she changed it too. You weren't sure? I was 70% sure. 70% isn't sure. The 2 of them stood staring at each other, breathing heavily. Okay. Gemma ran her hand through her pink hair. Okay, calm down. We can fix this. How? I don't know yet, but we can fix it. She grabbed her phone. I'm going to talk to Damien. He needs to know. 3 in the afternoon. Mansion library. Ellie, Damien, and Gemma were sitting in armchairs, trying to decide the next step. She said she's going to find out, Ellie repeated for the 5th time. It's only a matter of time. My mother doesn't make empty threats. Damien looked more tense than Ellie had ever seen him. If she said she's going to find out, she will. Then we tell her first, we come clean. If we tell, the merger collapses. My father has a heart attack. The wedding becomes a scandal. And if we don't tell, she finds out anyway, and we have all those problems plus the public humiliation. Silence. Option C? Gemma raised her hand. We convince my mom she's wrong. How? I don't know. Fake evidence? Forged documents? A clone of Caroline? Damien and Ellie looked at her. That was a joke, partially. 6 in the evening, 2nd floor hallway. Ellie was heading back to her room when she heard Victoria's voice, coming from a door slightly open, on the phone. I need recent photos of Caroline Whitmore, from the last 2 weeks. I want to compare them with. Ellie froze. Yes, that's it. Photos from Ibiza, social media, anything recent. Send me everything you find. Ellie's blood ran cold. Hard. Victoria was asking for photos of the real Caroline, of Caroline in Ibiza, with dates and times. If she got those photos, if she saw that Caroline was somewhere else while Caroline was in Boston, the plan was over. Ellie backed away silently, ran to her room, locked the door. Message to Gemma. Your mom asked for photos from Ibiza, of the real Caroline, with dates. It's only a matter of hours. Response in 10 seconds. Oh no. Message to Damien. Victoria is investigating. She's gonna find out soon. Response. I know. She mentioned at dinner that some things aren't making sense. We need a plan. Plan? What plan? There was no plan that would survive dated photos proving that Caroline Whitmore was in Ibiza while Caroline Whitmore was in Boston. Ellie sat on the edge of the bed, looked at the wig. What did we get ourselves into, Miss Wig? The wig didn't respond, but for the first time Ellie could have sworn it looked worried too. 10 at night. Message from Caroline in Ibiza. It was a selfie. Caroline in a bikini, tanned, with Rodrigo in the background doing something that looked like capoeira. "How's it going? Everything okay? Kisses." Ellie stared at the photo. The woman she was pretending to be. Happy, carefree, completely oblivious to the chaos her disappearance had caused. "Everything's great," she typed back. "All under control." A lie. Nothing was under control. Victoria was hours away from having proof. Damien was tense, Gemma was panicking, and Ellie was in love with another woman's fiancé while pretending to be that woman. What could go wrong? Midnight. Last message of the day. "Gemma, I found something." Rodrigo, the Brazilian, posted a photo on Instagram. With a date, yesterday, with Caroline, in Ibiza. "It's public. If my mom looks..." Ellie didn't need the rest of the message. It was only a matter of time now. Hours, maybe, before Victoria connected the dots. Before the plan crumbled. Before everything exploded. She looked at the ceiling, at the shadows dancing, at the life that had become a chess game where she was always one move behind. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day," she murmured to the wig. The wig didn't respond, but Ellie was sure it agreed. Newport, Rhode Island, the Ashford wedding estate, and Ellie's heart beating so hard she could hear it in her own ears. The rehearsal started in an hour, 50 people waiting, the Whitmore family smiling at her like she was their daughter. Victoria watching every move like a hawk, waiting for the moment to strike. And Ellie had just realized she didn't remember if Caroline was left-handed or right-handed. "You look green," Gemma whispered, adjusting Ellie's wig in the bridal suite. "Like literally green, like that sick emoji." "I'm going to throw up." "Not on the rehearsal dress. It's Vera Wang." "I'm going to throw up on the Vera Wang." "Ellie, focus." Gemma held her shoulders. "You can do this. Just walk to the altar, say yes, and don't pass out. 3 simple things. And don't let the wig fall. And don't let the contacts slip. And don't call my brother by the wrong name. And don't forget which hand wears the ring." Okay, it's 7 things. But you can do it. The rehearsal hall was ridiculously beautiful. White flowers everywhere, golden chairs, an altar that looked like it had been carved by angels with an unlimited budget. Ellie was at the back, waiting for the music to start, trying to remember how to breathe. "You look radiant, dear," Eleanor Whitmore said, adjusting an invisible detail on her veil. "Exactly how I imagined you at your wedding." Ellie smiled. A smile she hoped looked like an emotional daughter and not an imposter in total panic. The music started. She took the first step and stumbled. Not a big stumble, just a wobble that made half the guests hold their breath. Ellie recovered, smiled stiffly, and kept walking. Second step. Third. The wig itched like it had ants inside. The contacts burned. The rehearsal dress was too heavy, but she made it to the altar, standing, more or less in one piece. Damien was there, waiting. His eyes met hers and something passed between them, something that wasn't pretend. The priest began to speak. Vows, promises, words that Ellie could barely hear over the sound of her own heart. "Do you accept Damien Ashford as your lawful husband?" Ellie opened her mouth. She stopped. The wrong name almost came out. Carr from Ellie, not Carr from Caroline. Oli, that wasn't a word. Caroline. She practically shouted the name. "I do." Gemma, in the front row, coughed to cover her laugh. Victoria, 3 chairs ahead, had an expression that suggested she had heard exactly what happened. "The ring," the priest said. Damien took the rehearsal ring, held Ellie's hand. "Which hand?" Which hand? Was Caroline left-handed or right-handed? Ellie couldn't remember. She hadn't studied that. How had she not studied that? Damien noticed the hesitation. With a smooth movement, he brought the ring to the left hand, the standard hand, the hand everyone used. The ring slid onto Ellie's finger. Beautiful, perfect, and completely a lie. Her eyes filled with tears. "Hey," Damien whispered, so low only she could hear. "Why are you crying?" "Because this is beautiful, and none of it is real, and I wish it was." Something changed in his eyes, something that made her heart ache. "Who said it's not real?" "We said. The contract said. Contracts can be rewritten." The priest kept talking. Vows, blessings, words that seemed to come from very far away. But Ellie could only see Damien's eyes, and the question that hung between them. What was real and what was pretend? The beauty mark. Ellie had put it on the left. She knew she had put it on the left, but Victoria was staring, with an expression that said something was wrong. Ellie touched her cheek discreetly. "Left." "Yes, left." Victoria leaned toward a woman beside her, the assistant who had called about the photos, and whispered something. The rehearsal ended half an hour later. Applause, hugs, Photos that would make Ellie look like a happy bride instead of an imposter in an existential crisis. And then Victoria cornered her in the hallway. "We need to talk." It wasn't a suggestion. Now. Ellie followed the matriarch to an empty sitting room. The door closed with a sound that felt final. "I received the photos I requested." Victoria pulled her phone from her pocket, of Caroline from Ibiza. The world collapsed. Photos with date and time, posted by that Rodrigo. Victoria turned the phone around. Yesterday, in Ibiza, tanned, with drinks in her hand. The photo showed Caroline, the real Caroline, in a pink bikini, smiling, with Rodrigo making a peace sign in the background. "So tell me, dear." Victoria moved closer. "If Caroline is in Ibiza, who exactly is going to marry my son tomorrow?" Silence. The kind of silence that happens when you're completely, absolutely cornered. Ellie considered lying, making up an explanation, saying it was an old photo, a fake, anything. But looking at Victoria, at the woman who clearly already knew the truth and just wanted to hear it out loud, she realized there was no point. "My name is Ellie Morgan," she said. "I've been Damien's assistant for 2 years. Victoria didn't seem surprised. "Continue." "Caroline ran away to Ibiza with Rodrigo a week before the wedding. Damien asked me to pretend to be her so he wouldn't have to cancel everything, so he wouldn't ruin the merger." "And why did you accept?" $500,000. Ellie swallowed hard. "My mother is sick. She needs treatment." Something passed through Victoria's eyes. Almost, it seemed to be understanding. "And now? How long do you plan to keep pretending?" "Until the wedding. Then a quiet divorce in 6 months. That was the plan." "Was?" Ellie stayed silent, because the truth was she didn't know what the plan was anymore. Not since Cape Cod. Not since the sailboat. Not since Damien said she was different from anyone he'd ever met. "You fell in love with my son." It wasn't a question. Ellie didn't respond. She didn't need to. "How inconvenient." Victoria put her phone away. "You know what this means, don't you? You're going to tell everyone, expose everything, destroy the merger and send me away. That's what I should do." "But..." Victoria walked to the window. For a long moment, she just stood there, looking at the immaculate gardens. "Caroline is pregnant," she said finally. "What? 3 months, with the Brazilian." Victoria turned around. "If this leaks, that my son's fiancée ran away pregnant with another man, the scandal won't just hit you, it will hit both families." Ellie processed the information. "So you're not going to tell?" "I'm going to do something worse." Victoria moved closer. "You're going to marry my son. You're going to stay married for a year, not 6 months. And when the divorce happens, it will be on my terms, with a confidentiality agreement, with compensation that I decide. And if I refuse?" "You won't refuse." Victoria smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Because you love him, and because deep down, you know this is the only chance he has to be happy, for the first time in his life." Ellie stayed silent, processing the blackmail, the trap, the cage that was closing around her. "I don't understand," she said finally. "Why are you doing this?" "Because my husband is dying." Victoria's voice cracked for the first time. "And the only thing he wants before he goes is to see his son married. Happy, with someone who looks at him the way you do." Pause. "I may not like you, girl, but I recognize when I'm facing someone who truly loves my son." Ellie felt her eyes burn, and this time it wasn't the contacts. "Love isn't enough in this world," Victoria continued. "You'll learn, but for now, it will have to do." She left, leaving Ellie alone with the weight of a blackmail that felt strangely close to a twisted blessing. 10 minutes later, Damien found her in the hallway. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." Ellie looked at him, the man she had fallen in love with while pretending to be someone else. "Your mother knows. Everything." "What? How?" "Photos from Ibiza, of the real Caroline, with dates." Damien went pale. "The wedding is going to happen," Ellie continued, "but not for the right reasons." "What reasons?" "She's blackmailing me, Damien, and I accepted." Pause. "Because I don't have a choice." He held her face. "There's always a choice." "Not when I love you." The words escaped, without permission, without planning. They just came out. They both froze. Ellie had just confessed, out loud, in the middle of a hallway, with his mother probably listening from somewhere. Damien said nothing. His eyes searched hers, looking for truth, looking for lies, looking for something to hold on to. "Ellie, I know, I shouldn't have said it. This wasn't part of the..." He kissed her. Not a disaster containment kiss like at the opera. A real kiss. The kind that makes the world stop spinning for a second. When they separated, Ellie was trembling. That was, she started. Real. He finished. That was real. And for the first time since the plan started, Ellie believed that maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all this madness. Even if his mother was blackmailing her. Even if the wedding was a farce. Even if tomorrow she was going to get married wearing a wig, contacts, and a borrowed identity. Because that kiss had been the truest thing in her life. 3 a.m. Ellie couldn't sleep. She was sitting on the edge of the bed in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the last few hours in an endless loop. Victoria knew. Victoria was blackmailing her. Victoria had said Charles was dying, and she had kissed Damien. A real kiss, in the hallway, where anyone could have seen. "What did I do?" she asked the wig on the vanity. "What did I do, Miss Wig?" The wig didn't respond, but for the first time, Ellie wished it would. A knock at the door. Ellie froze. "Victoria, coming to collect something, to add more conditions to the deal?" "It's me." Damien's voice. Low, careful. She opened the door. He was there, still in his rehearsal clothes, looking as lost as she felt. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside to let him pass. Damien entered, looked around, at the room that wasn't hers, at another woman's dress hanging in the closet, at the wig that represented all the lies between them. "I can't sleep," he said. "Neither can I." "Did my mother tell you about my father?" "That he's—" Ellie couldn't finish the sentence. "Sick, very sick. The doctors give him months, maybe less." Damien sat in the armchair near the window. "That's why she's so determined to make this wedding happen. It's his last wish." Ellie sat on the edge of the bed facing him. "Damien, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." "No one knows. He doesn't want people to look at him with pity." Damien ran his hand over his face. "He just wants to see me happy." "Once, before." His voice broke. Ellie got up, went to him, knelt in front of the armchair and held his hands. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, look at me." He looked. His eyes were shining. "You don't have to be strong all the time. Not with me. I don't know how to be different." "Then learn." She squeezed his hands. "Start now." For a long moment they stayed there. Damien with tears in his eyes that he never let anyone see. Ellie holding him as if she could keep the pieces together. "What you said in the hallway," he began, "about loving me. I said it. Did you mean it?" "I meant it." Silence. The kind of silence that carries the weight of confessions. "I don't know what to do with this," Damien admitted. "With you, with this whole situation. My entire life has been planned, controlled, and then you appeared and nothing makes sense anymore, in a good way." "Are you saying I messed up your life in a good way?" "I'm saying you're the best thing that ever happened to me." He laughed softly. "An assistant who pretends to be my fiancé and talks to wigs." "Hey, don't insult the wig. She has feelings." Damien smiled. A real smile. The rare kind she had learned to recognize. "What do we do now?" Ellie asked. "I don't know. My mother is blackmailing you. My father is dying. And tomorrow you're going to marry me, pretending to be someone else." When you list it like that, it sounds worse than it is. It sounds exactly like what it is. Ellie laughed. A laugh half hysterical, half relieved. "You know what's strange?" she said. "Despite all of this, I don't regret it. Accepting, meeting you, falling in love even knowing it was the worst idea in the universe." "Do you regret anything?" she thought. About the wig that itched, about the contacts that burned, about the moments of panic, about the lies, about the blackmail. "Not kissing you on the sailboat," she said finally. "When I had the chance, before your mother called." Damien was silent for a moment. Then he leaned in. The kiss was different from the one before. Softer, slower, as if they had all the time in the world, even knowing they didn't. When they separated, Ellie was smiling. "That was good," she said. "That was real." "It's the same thing." "For us? Yes, it's the same thing." 6 a.m. Gemma knocked on the door like the house was on fire. "Wake up!" "Crisis, we need to talk." Ellie opened the door, still groggy from sleep. "Gemma, it's 6 a.m. My mom knows about you two." The kiss, the hallway, she has informants. Ellie froze. Damien appeared behind her. They had spent the night talking just that, but clearly no one was going to believe it. Gemma looked from one to the other. Her eyes widened. "You two? Here, together, all night?" "We just talked," Ellie said quickly. "Sure, talked." Gemma made air quotes. "Look, I don't care what you did or didn't do, but my mom is having a meeting right now about you two, with lawyers." "Lawyers?" Damien seemed to fully wake up. "Why? Because she's Victoria Ashford, and because she can?" Half an hour later, Victoria's office. The matriarch was seated behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from an ancient tree, with two lawyers in suits that cost more than Ellie's car. "Sit down." Ellie and Damien sat. "I said the wedding would happen," Victoria began, "and it will, but we need adjustments." "What kind of adjustments?" Damien asked. "The kind that involves confidentiality agreements." Victoria pushed a folder across the desk. "You, Ellie Morgan, are going to sign a document guaranteeing that you never reveal the details of this agreement. Never talk about pretending to be Caroline. Never mention the existence of this plan. And if I don't sign, then I expose everything. Today, before the wedding." Victoria smiled. "And you leave with nothing. No money, no Damien, nothing." "Mother," Damien started. "Don't interrupt me." Victoria didn't take her eyes off Ellie. "Do you understand the situation?" Ellie picked up the folder, opened it, pages and pages of legal language. "How long do I have to read this?" 30 minutes. "That's not enough time. That's the time you have." The silence in the room was suffocating. Ellie looked at Damien, at Victoria, at the lawyers who looked like wax statues. "Can I have a moment alone?" she asked. "To think?" Victoria hesitated, then nodded. Ellie left the office, walked down the hallway, found a window and stood there, looking at the immaculate gardens. She could refuse, walk away, leave all of this behind. But then she thought about her mother, about the treatment, about the money that would change everything. She thought about Damien, about his eyes when he said she was the best thing that had happened to him. She thought about Charles, dying, wanting to see his son happy. And she thought about herself, about the Ellie who had entered this plan for money and was leaving it in love. "What would you do?" she asked the window. The window didn't respond. But the answer was clear anyway. She went back to the office. "I'll sign," she said. "With one condition." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Condition?" "I want to see Damien happy, truly happy, not this manufactured happiness you build around him." Ellie took a deep breath. "I'll sign your agreement. I'll stay married for as long as you want, but you're not going to control how we live this marriage. That's between us." Victoria was silent for a long moment. "You have courage," she said finally. "I underestimated you. People do that." Another silence. Then something Ellie never expected. Victoria almost smiled. "I accept your condition." She pushed a pen across the desk. "Sign." Ellie picked up the pen, looked at the document, at the paper trap that was closing around her, and signed. When she left the office, Damien was waiting in the hallway. "What happened?" "I signed." Ellie leaned against the wall. "We're officially trapped in this madness. You didn't have to do that. I know." She looked at him. "But I wanted to." "Why?" "Because you're worth it." She smiled. "Even if your mother is terrifying, and your father is dying, and my wig itches like it has a life of its own." Damien pulled her into a hug, the kind of hug that says more than words could. "The wedding is tomorrow," he murmured into her hair. "I know. Are you ready?" "No." She laughed against his chest. "But when has that ever stopped me?" And there, in the hallway of the Ashford mansion, with a freshly signed contract and a wedding in less than 24 hours, Ellie Morgan finally understood something. Sometimes the best decisions are the ones that don't make sense. And sometimes the truest love is born from the most absurd lies. 11 at night, the night before the wedding. Ellie was sitting in the guest room, which tomorrow would officially be her room, looking at the wedding dress hanging in the closet. Caroline's dress, which was now her dress. In a way. "Listen here, dress." She got up and went to it. "You were made for another woman. A woman who is in Ibiza right now, learning to surf with a Brazilian with impressive thighs. And tomorrow I'm going to wear you to marry her ex-fiancé while pretending to be her." Pause. "If you have an opinion about this, now is the time to speak up." The dress didn't respond. That was to be expected. Great. Silence is consent. A knock at the door. Ellie's heart raced. After what had happened in the last few days, she never knew what to expect. "Who is it?" "Me, Damien." She opened the door. He was there, still in his suit, with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Couldn't even try." He walked in. "Can I stay for a bit?" "Of course." They sat down, her on the edge of the bed, him in the armchair. The distance between them seemed greater than it really was. "Tomorrow," he began. "Tomorrow. Are you ready?" Ellie laughed, a small laugh, half scared. "I don't know what ready means anymore. Ready to pretend to be someone else? Ready to marry the man I truly met 2 weeks ago? Ready to deceive 400 people who think they're celebrating something real?" It is real, Damien said softly. What? This thing between us, it's real. He stood up, moved closer. I spent 2 years engaged to Caroline, 2 years of dinners and events and photos and appearances, and in all that time, I felt nothing. Ellie looked at him, at the man who had turned her life upside down. And now I feel everything. He stopped in front of her. In 2 weeks with you, I felt more than in 2 years with her. Fear, hope, the urge to laugh, the urge to cry, the urge to be someone different, someone better. Damien, I know the situation is absurd. I know my mother is blackmailing you. I know tomorrow you're going to wear a wig and contacts and pretend to be a woman who ran off with a tennis instructor. He held her face. But I also know that when I look at you, I see the rest of my life, and that scares me and makes me happy at the same time. Ellie felt her eyes burn. And this time it wasn't the contacts. She wasn't even wearing them. You said you love me, he continued. Yesterday. In the hallway. Did you mean it? I meant it. Say it again. I love you. The words came out easier this time. I love you, even knowing this is madness. Even knowing your mother is probably listening behind some door. Even knowing that tomorrow I'm going to get married pretending to be someone else. Damien smiled, the smile she had learned to love, the real one, not the CEO one. Then let's do this, he said. What? Get married, for real. Not the farce my mother planned, not the contract you signed. He knelt in front of her. Ellie Morgan, I want you to marry me, not as Caroline, as you. But tomorrow I'm going to be wearing a wig, and I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about after. When all of this is over, when the merger is consolidated and my father... His voice faltered. When my father passes, I want to marry you again. Without lies, without disguises, just us. Ellie was speechless, which didn't happen often. Are you proposing to me? She finally managed to say. On the night before our fake wedding? Sounds like something from a soap opera, doesn't it? Sounds like something from our soap opera. Damien laughed, a low laugh, almost surprised. Is that a yes? That's a, you're completely crazy and so am I, and yes, 1,000 times yes. He kissed her. Their third real kiss, or fourth, if you counted the one at the opera that was technically to hide the crooked wig. When they separated, Ellie was smiling. You know what's strange? She said. What? I'm emotionally attached to the wig. She looked at the item on the vanity. It gave me you, in some twisted, strange way. Do you want to keep it? For our first anniversary. The real one, not the fake wedding one. Damien looked at the wig, at the synthetic creature that had itched and almost flown away and caused so many problems. It looks like an abandoned animal. It is my best friend now. We've been through a lot together. You're emotionally attached to a wig. Don't judge. This wig gave me you. They stayed there for a moment, sitting on the edge of the bed, hands intertwined, looking at the uncertain future that awaited them. Tomorrow, Damien said, when you're at the altar. With the wig and the beauty mark and the contacts that burn. I won't be looking at Caroline. Who will you be looking at? At you. Only you. It was always you. Ellie felt her heart tighten, in the best way possible, even with the crooked wig? Especially with the crooked wig. She laughed, he laughed, and for a moment sitting in that room on the eve of a fake wedding, they seemed like the most real couple in the world. 3 a.m. Damien had left an hour ago. To avoid scandal, even though the scandal was already too big to be avoided. Ellie was alone with the dress, the wig, and thoughts that wouldn't stop. Tomorrow I get married, she said to the ceiling. Wig and all. The ceiling didn't respond. The dress didn't respond. But the wig seemed to itch a little, just to remind her who was in charge. I know, Ellie murmured. You're the star of the show, I know. Message from Gemma at 3:15. Can't sleep, right? Me neither. Tomorrow is going to be intense. But you can do it, and if you can't, I have an emergency plan. What's the emergency plan? Fake a fainting spell to distract everyone while you escape. It works in soap operas. Are you sure it works in real life? No, but it would be fun to try. Ellie smiled, closed her eyes. Tomorrow she was going to marry Damien Ashford, in front of 400 people, pretending to be a woman who was in Ibiza. Her mother was going to get the treatment. Victoria was going to keep controlling everything. Charles was going to see his son happy before he passed. And Ellie was going to wear a wig that itched, contacts that burned, and another woman's dress. But when she closed her eyes, the only thing she could think about was Damien's look when he said it was always her. And for a moment, Just a moment. The fear seemed small compared to everything she was gaining. Even if she was gaining it through a lie, even if none of it made sense. Some things are worth it anyway. The wig itched one last time, as if it agreed, or maybe it was just being stubborn. With this wig, you could never be sure. The day had arrived. Ellie Morgan, soon to be Caroline Whitmore Ashford to the world, was in the bridal suite surrounded by 3 makeup artists, 2 hairstylists, 1 stylist, and Gemma, who was filming everything on her phone like it was documentary material. "Stop filming," Ellie hissed. "This is family history, premium content. This is fraud in real time. Premium fraud content, even better." The wig was being secured with an industrial amount of bobby pins, hairspray, and what Ellie suspected was silent prayer. "It won't fall," the hairstylist promised. "I secured it with military technique." "Did you serve in the army?" "No, but I've secured a wig on a drag queen during a hurricane. It's the equivalent." Ellie couldn't argue with that. The contacts were put in, burning as always, but at least they were in place. The gel nails, new because the old ones had been lost in various incidents, were installed and making every movement difficult. And then, the beauty mark. "Which cheek?" Ellie practically screamed. Gemma appeared at her side. "Right." Damien from the hallway, he couldn't come in tradition. "Left." "You two don't agree on anything." Victoria appeared at the door. Looked at the scene. Looked at Ellie in panic. Looked at Gemma filming. "Middle," she said. Everyone looked. "Put it in the middle of the chin. When they ask, say it's a European fashion." Silence. "That's..." Ellie didn't know how to finish. "Brilliant," Gemma finished. "That's brilliant. I know. Now go marry my son." And so with a beauty mark on her chin and an explanation about European fashion, Ellie Morgan got ready to get married. The ceremony would be in the garden of the Ashford estate. 400 people, seated in golden chairs, white flowers everywhere, an altar that looked like it had been designed by someone with unlimited access to Pinterest and a small country's budget. Ellie was in the back, waiting for the music to start, trying to remember how to breathe. "You can do this." Gemma beside her, finally without her phone. "Just walk. Say yes. Don't fall. What if the wig falls off? I'll dive to catch it. I've practiced. What if the contacts slip? We'll make up an allergy. What if I say the wrong name? You're not going to say the wrong name." The music started. Ellie took the first step. The dress was heavier than it looked. The heels sank into the grass, even with the carpet. The wig itched. The contacts burned, but she was walking. 1 step, 2, 3. 400 people turned to look. 400 people seeing Caroline Whitmore on her happiest day. In the front row, Caroline's parents smiled. Eleanor was wiping away a tear. Robert looked proud of a daughter who wasn't even there. Charles Ashford, frail but standing, had shining eyes. Victoria was impeccable as always. But when her eyes met Ellie's, something passed between them. A recognition, a reluctant acceptance. And then Ellie saw Damien, waiting at the altar, in a tuxedo, with a smile that was only for her, for Ellie, not for Caroline. She made it to the altar without falling. Miracle number 1 of the day. The priest began to speak. Vows, promises, words she could barely hear over the sound of her own heart. Everything was going well. It was going to work out. It was, "Dear, your eyes are..." Eleanor's voice, low, confused. Ellie turned. Caroline's mother was looking at her with a strange expression. "Are what?" "Different. One looks more dark." Ellie's blood ran cold. One of the contacts had slipped. 1 blue eye, 1 brown. 400 people. 400 people about to see. Damien noticed. She saw in his eyes the exact moment he understood what was happening. And then he did something she never expected. "Actually," he said out loud, interrupting the priest, "there's something everyone needs to know." No. He was going to tell. He was going to expose everything. In front of 400 people. In front of Caroline's parents. In front of everyone. "Damien, don't... let me speak." Ellie closed her eyes, waited for the end. "The truth is..." Damien looked at the audience. "I never loved Caroline." Gasps, murmurs. The priest looked like he was going to have a heart attack. "Caroline is in Ibiza right now, happy, with someone else. And honestly, I'm happy for her." More gasps. Eleanor looked like she was going to faint. Robert had the face of someone who didn't understand anything. "And I'm here at the altar with the woman I truly love." Damien turned to Ellie. Gently, carefully, he raised his hands to her wig. She froze. "What are you?" "Trust me," he whispered, and took off the wig. Ellie's brown hair fell over her shoulders, then the contacts. He removed them with almost surgical care. And then the beauty mark on her chin, he wiped it off with his thumb. 400 people watching. 400 people in shocked silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damien said, his voice firm. "This is Ellie Morgan, my assistant, the woman who agreed to pretend to be Caroline to save a wedding and a merger, the bravest and most disastrous woman I've ever met." He held her face, "And I choose her." The silence was absolute, the kind of silence that could last forever or explode at any second. And then Charles Ashford stood up. "I always knew," he said, his voice weak but clear. Everyone turned. "A week ago, this girl held my hand and cried for real." Charles walked to the altar, slowly. Caroline never cried about anything in her life, never cared about anything but herself. He stopped in front of Ellie. "I knew you weren't her, since the first dinner. But I also saw something I had never seen before, my son truly smiling." Ellie's eyes filled with tears. "Welcome to the family, Ellie Morgan." Victoria was standing. Her face was an impossible mask to read. For a long moment, no one breathed. And then, slowly, she approached. "You destroyed 2 years of planning," she said to Ellie. "I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize." Pause. "For the first time, my son did something he wanted to do, not something he should." She looked at Damien, at Ellie, at the chaos that the carefully planned ceremony had become. "I don't understand this feeling, but I recognize when it's real." Almost a smile. "Welcome to the family, Ellie Morgan. Don't ruin everything." Caroline's parents, incredibly, started laughing. "Our daughter ran off with a Brazilian," Eleanor said, wiping away tears that were now from laughter. "And her fiancé fell in love with his assistant? This is hilarious." "This is movie material," Robert agreed. "Someone write this down." Gemma from the front row. "Already writing." The priest cleared his throat. "So, shall we proceed with the ceremony, with the real bride?" Damien looked at Ellie. "Do you want to marry me, as yourself?" Ellie looked around, at the 400 people who had just discovered the truth, at Victoria, who was accepting against her will, at Charles, who knew from the beginning, at Gemma filming everything to post. "Yes," she said, 1,000 times yes. The priest smiled. "First time I've had a wedding with an identity reveal in the middle." "First of many," Gemma shouted. "This family is great for drama." And so, without a wig, without contacts, without a beauty mark on her chin, Ellie Morgan married Damien Ashford, as herself. For the first time, the wedding kiss was perfect, almost perfect. Because Ellie, nervous and happy at the same time, leaned in to kiss Damien and tripped on the dress. They both almost fell off the altar. "Now that's the real Ellie." Damien holding her, laughing. "You're a disaster." Ellie also laughing. "I warned you. The best disaster of my life." And there, at the altar of a wedding that had started as a farce and ended as the most real thing that had ever happened to her, Ellie Morgan finally felt at home. Even without a wig. Especially without a wig. 6 months later, dinner at the Ashford mansion. Ellie, with brown hair, brown eyes, no disguise at all, was sitting at the table that had been the scene of so many near disasters. Only now she belonged there, for real. "So," Gemma said, grabbing more wine, "did you see that Caroline had the baby?" Everyone turned. "A boy. Rodrigo Jr." Gemma showed the photo on her phone. "She sent a message thanking us for freeing her from the wedding, with a heart emoji." "She sent a heart emoji?" Ellie asked, incredulous. 3, actually. And a photo of the baby wearing sunglasses, on the beach. Victoria sighed. "At least someone is happy." "We're all happy, Mom." Damien held Ellie's hand under the table, in different ways. Charles, from the other side of the table, smiled. He was weaker now. The months had taken their toll, but he was still there, still smiling, still seeing his son happy. "You two," he said, pointing at Damien and Ellie with his fork. "You gave me the best surprise of my life." "Technically, it was an elaborate fraud," Ellie pointed out. "Technically, it was the best fraud in this family's history, and we have some good ones." "We do?" Gemma perked up. "What other ones?" "Ask your mother about Monaco, 1987. Victoria choked on her wine. "Charles?" "What? You also pretended to be someone else, at least once. That was completely different." "How different?" "It was a casino, and it was necessary." Ellie exchanged a look with Damien. He was smiling, the real smile she had learned to love. "Your family is amazing," she whispered. "Our family," he corrected. Ellie felt her heart tighten, in the best way possible. 8 at night. Dessert. Ellie was getting more cake when she spilled wine on the tablecloth. A purple stain spread across the immaculate white. "Sorry," She tried to clean it with her napkin. Her hands without gel nails were much more functional now, but the tendency toward disasters remained the same. I didn't mean to. This always happens, Victoria sighed. The kind of sigh she had perfected over decades of dealing with minor catastrophes. The tablecloth can be washed. But it's old. It must have belonged to some European countess or... It was my mother-in-law's, whom I hated. Victoria almost smiled. You did me a favor. Ellie blinked. Really? Don't tell anyone. From the other side of the table, Gemma was filming everything. This is gold. My mom having a vulnerable moment. Can someone help me edit this to post? Gemma Ashford, if you post anything. Too late, already posted. 3,000 likes in 2 minutes. Victoria closed her eyes, took a deep breath, opened her eyes. I raised monsters. You raised interesting people, Charles corrected. Those are different things. 10 at night. Dinner had ended. Ellie was in the winter garden, the same place where Charles had held her hand months ago and said she was different, when Damien found her. What are you thinking about? He asked, sitting down next to her. Everything. She looked at the lit garden. 6 months ago I was at the office at 11 at night, surrounded by wedding invitations, and now you're the woman on the invitations. Now I'm the woman who spills wine on countess tablecloths and made your mother almost smile. 2 impressive achievements. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who don't need to fill every second with words. I miss the beauty mark, Damien said suddenly. Ellie turned to him. The beauty mark? The one you put in the wrong place every day, the one that almost exposed you at the opera, the chin one that was European fashion. Which one specifically? All of them. Ellie laughed. She grabbed the napkin from the table next to her, found a lipstick in her purse. Because now she could carry lipstick without gel nails preventing her from opening anything. She drew a beauty mark on her own chin. Better? Damien smiled, the smile that was only for her. Perfect. You know you're married to a crazy person, right? I know, it's the best kind of married. Midnight, their bedroom. Ellie was lying in bed, a giant bed, in a giant suite in a giant mansion that was now her home, looking at the ceiling. The wig was in a special box in the closet. Damien had insisted on keeping it as a memento from the first chapter of their story. Do you think she misses me? Ellie asked. The wig? Yes. I think she's relieved she doesn't have to itch anyone anymore. That's rude. She worked hard. Damien laughed, pulled her closer. You're the strangest person I've ever met. You hired a stranger to pretend to be your fiancé. Strangeness is this family's specialty. Our family. They lay there in the dark, listening to the sounds of the mansion settling for the night. Are you happy? Damien asked softly. Ellie thought. About her mother who now had the best treatment possible. About her career that had changed completely. About the crazy family she had gained. About the man beside her who had turned her life upside down. Yes, she said. Completely. Absolutely. Inexplicably happy. Even without the wig? Especially without the wig. Damien kissed her. The kind of kiss that says more than words. When they separated, Ellie was smiling. You know what's funny? She said. What? All of this started because a woman ran off with a Brazilian with impressive thighs. And it ended with you drawing a beauty mark on your chin with lipstick. Strange stories deserve strange endings. Or strange beginnings. That was profound. I have my moments. 3 a.m. Message from Gemma. I saw you're still awake. Just wanted to let you know. I posted the video of Mom almost smiling. It went viral. She's going to disown me tomorrow. Worth it. Ellie showed it to Damien. Your sister is going to be disowned. She's already been disowned 4 times. She always comes back. Is that reassuring? That's the Ashford family. Our family. And there, at 3 a.m, in a mansion that had become home, next to a man who had become everything, Ellie Morgan finally understood something. Sometimes the best stories begin with lies. Sometimes the truest love is born from the most absurd chaos. And sometimes, just sometimes, a synthetic blonde wig that itches too much can change an entire life. The wig, in the box in the closet, didn't respond. But Ellie could have sworn it agreed. And so ends the story of Ellie Morgan and Damien Ashford, the assistant who became a substitute bride and ended up finding the truest love in the midst of the most absurd lie. What did you think of Ellie's transformation, from insecure assistant to confident wife, who won over even the fearsome Victoria Ashford? Leave your opinion in the comments. We want to know what your favorite moment was. The near disaster at golf? The kiss at the opera to hide the crooked wig? Or the epic reveal at the altar? On a scale of 0 to 10, what grade would you give this story of love, lies, and a wig with its own personality? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more exciting stories like this one, where love always finds a way to bloom, even in the most unlikely places. And remember, sometimes the best version of yourself is hiding under a synthetic blonde wig. See you in the next story.